Hello, people. I have finished a book, Herodotus, the history. And yes, I know that it's Herodotus, but apparently I'm like genetically predisposed to mispronounce Greek names. Not just people's names, but place names as well. Uh, I feel like this is a big deal finishing this book. I put it right up there with Gibbon. Took me a little while, about 2 weeks. 664 pages. There's probably a lot of different editions of this. This one was translated by a guy named David Green or Grenet or something. 664 pages, but included in that is an awful lot of notes down at the bottom of the page, which I didn't read all of them, and if I have one little regret about my time spent with this book, I should have probably read more of those notes. Mostly I didn't read those because the fucking print was so small. The print in this book was small enough already, but the notes at the bottom of the page was very small. I did discover about halfway through this that a lot of those notes were in regards to place names, and he was giving the modern equivalent. So yeah, I wish I would have read a little bit more of them. I did, towards about halfway through the book, I started reading some of them. I also discovered that some of the notes at the bottom were a little bit redundant, and he had already covered that in the book. But I can't complain about this book. This was a wonderful book. I just finished it this morning. I had like 40 pages or so to go, and I had breakfast, and I sat there in bed reading it. It's a nice chilly morning here. And here we go. I got a few notes. There is a 32-page introduction, and I found the introduction lacking in some very basic information. And here I get right into reading things. First paragraph, page 33. This is a paragraph that we've probably all seen at one point or another. Get on the right page here and we'll get to it. I, Herodotus of Halicarnassus, am here setting forth my history, that time may not draw the color from what man has brought into being, nor those great and wonderful deeds, manifested by both Greeks and barbarians, fail of their report, and together with all this, the reason why they fought one another. I thought that was pretty cool. Herodotus goes into great big long lists of cities. He does this all throughout the book. Also, long lists of different Greek tribes, I guess you would say. He gives the history of the Persians with Cyrus, and Cyrus is expanding his borders to the east, where he runs into some people that is actually ruled by a queen, and they have these battles, and the queen sends him a note, and the queen says, since you have a thirst for blood, I'll make sure that you get enough. And the final battle, Cyrus is killed. She finds his corpse, cuts the head off, and puts it in like a skin, like a goat's stomach or something, full of blood. I thought that was kind of a cool story. There's lots of little stories like that in here. Some of them believable, many of them not. To give Herodotus credit, many points in the book he says, I do not believe this, but... And then he'll give you an alternative story, because there's 2-3 stories going around about this. He talks about the gods and people's religions, and to him, just because somebody had a different name for a god didn't mean nothing. It was still the Greek gods, and he would say, okay, this god means a Apollo and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, he does this with the Egyptians. And let's see, I got to read something here. 154. Sometimes when I get to these reading parts, I wonder why the hell But whence each of these gods came into existence, or whether they were forever, and what type of shape they had, were not known until the day before yesterday, if I may use the expression. For I believe that Homer and Hesiod were 400 years before my time, and no more than that. It was they who created for the Greeks their theogony. It was they who gave to the gods the special names for their descent from their ancestors, and divided among them the honors, the arts, and their shapes. Those who were spoken of as poets before Homer and Hesiod were, in my opinion, later born. The first part of this that I have said is what the priestesses at Dodona say, but the latter, as concerns Homer and Hesiod, is my own statement. So it sounds like Herodotus maybe recognized that the gods were somewhat of an invention of man. And I should have just stayed there because I got some more reading very close to that. The Egyptians were the first of mankind to feel religious scruples in certain matters, notably not to lie with women in holy places, nor yet to go into the holy places after lying with a woman, without first washing oneself. For nearly all the rest of mankind, except for the Egyptians and the Greeks, have intercourse in holy places, and rise from intercourse with a woman, and go into a shrine without washing. For they think that men are much as other beasts. They see the other beasts and the tribes of birds riding one another in the temples and sacred precincts of the gods. If this were not pleasing to the god, the beast would not do it. But this kind of reasoning that they bring forward is one that for me especially is distasteful. Still, certainly the Egyptians, in this and in all other matters of the holy things, are excessively giving to religious scruples. My note here says, wash eyes in piss. And one of the stories is some king somewhere is struck blind. And he goes, all throughout the book, they're going to the oracles to find out what the hell to do about something. This guy goes, and the oracle tells him that you have to find a woman that has had sex only with her husband. So this poor guy washes his eyes in the piss of many, many women, and he never regains his sight until finally he finds the right one. And apparently he decides to burn the other ones to death. He goes into the Trojan War, and he goes into Helen being in Egypt. And I read quite a bit about the Trojan War. And there is this story that Helen wasn't even in Troy, and that when the Greek armies first arrived there, that if Helen would have been in Troy, they would have gave her back. But they couldn't because she wasn't there. She was in Egypt. I think Herodotus is where that part of the story originates. And then I got a few more paragraphs to read here. And these are examples of kind of the silly stuff. The middle of the book was not easy to get through. 256, second paragraph. There are others of the Indians who are neighbors. This is when Herodotus is like the geographer and the naturalist, and he's going around the known world and explaining things. There are others of the Indians who are neighbors of the city of Casparias in the Bactrian country north of the rest of India, and these live much like the Bactrians. They are the most warlike of the Indians, and it is they who go in quest of the gold. For in these parts all is desert because of the sand. In this desert and sand there are ants that are in bigness lesser than dogs, but larger than foxes. Some of them have been hunted and captured and kept at the palace of the Persian king. These ants make their dwelling underground, digging out the sand in much the same fashion as ants do in Greece, and they are also very like them in form. The sand they dig out has gold in it. This is just an example of, you know, obviously there were not ants as large as foxes. He never says he doesn't believe that story. And then 259, there's another one. Third paragraph. That then is enough about spices and perfumes. There is a most marvelous sweet smell from all this land of Arabia. There are also two varieties of sheep that are worthy of wonder and occur nowhere else. The one of these has a long tail, not less than 4½ feet. If this were suffered to trail after the sheep, it would be injured because of the rubbing of the tail on the ground. As it is, every shepherd knows enough of carpentry to make a small cart on which to fasten the tail, one for each sheep. I'm pretty sure that story is not true either. And then I wrote some other stuff here myself. Herodotus apparently lived from 484 to 425 BCE. There's a little bit of discrepancy about when he died. The Peloponnesian War was from 431 to 404 BCE. And yes, I'm aware that there was a break in the Peloponnesian War, and some people call it the first and the second, but it was just a truce. And the Persian Wars went from 499 to 449 BCE. So he lived through all of this. And the 499 was I think they say that it began, with Marathon and with all the Ionia stuff and with, what's his name, shooting an arrow into the air and vowing revenge on the Athenians. On page 294, there's a very cool map that is the known world at that time. He talks about a Libyan city named Barca, which he just barely mentions the Carthaginians, but Barca, in a time when nobody had last names, that was the last name of Hannibal. 664 pages. Marathon, the Battle of Marathon is on page 470. So you really have to struggle through this thing to get to the cool part. 482. I have some reading here. Second and third paragraph. This is about Xerxes. A great storm comes and smashes his bridge. On learning this, Xerxes was furious and bade his men lay 300 lashes on the Hellespont and lower into the sea a yoke of fetters. Fetters are chains, that you would chain somebody's arms or legs. The Greeks are trying to recruit allies, and they go to Syracuse. Syracuse has always had a great army. They figure in that the history of that area all through. I mean, Archimedes was killed there. Syracuse would not help. They offer to help, but there's strings attached, and the Athenians don't accept their help. The Spartans are also there. And I just wonder whether that maybe led to this ridiculous seaborne assault during the Peloponnesian War, when the Athenians lose all these troops and all these ships. And it really, to me, that's the turning point in the Peloponnesian War. Okay, we get to Thermopylae, and everybody knows that there was only 300 Spartans there. I mean, fuck, they made a movie about it. But I tallied up everybody that Herodotus says is there, and it comes up to 5,200 Greek troops. After it's all over, after the Persians make their way through the pass, Xerxes wants to recruit Greeks, and so he hides most of the Persian dead and piles up the Greek dead. There's 4,000 of the Greek dead. So You see right there that there was a few more than 300. 300 is actually also a number that gets used in a lot of other places. The Persians even use it when Alexander at the gates to something. Second paragraph, page 648. So we're very near the end. There's some real cool maps at the back, too. It is said that the following also happened. When Xerxes fled from Greece, he left Mardonius all his gear. Pausanias looked at Mardonius' tent. This is after the Battle of Plataea. When that's it for the Persians. Looked at Mardonius' tent and all its furnishings of gold and silver and richly covered curtains, and he ordered the bakers and the cooks to serve up a meal exactly as they had done for Mardonius. They did so on his orders, and when Pausanias looked at the couches of gold and silver so richly covered, and the tables of gold and silver, and the magnificent preparation of the dinner, he stood amazed at all the good things to set out. Then, for the laughter of it, he told his own servants to prepare a Laconian meal. When this meal was ready, and the difference was great, Pausanias broke out laughing and sent for the Greek generals. When they assembled, Pausanias pointed to the two meals and said, "Men of Greece, the reason I have summoned you together is because I want to show you the stupidity of the leader of the Medes. He had daily meals like this, and came upon us to take from us the miserable fare we have here." That, as the story goes, is what Pausanias said to the Greek generals. That's it. That's it for my notes. This was a fantastic book. I am going to probably go today and look for Thucydides. If I can't find Thucydides, I'll be happy with any Tacitus that I might find. Germania especially. I'll settle for Agricola. But that's it. The fucking video's getting pretty long. Thank you for watching.